All right, let's just jump right in. Do you remember the Humane AI Pin? Yeah, that thing that launched, flopped so hard it became an internet meme and then just kind of disappeared? Well, get this. It turns out Apple was watching that whole train wreck, and after seeing that spectacular failure, they decided to build their own AI pin anyway. So I've been digging through all the leaks, the patent filings, the analyst reports, and what I found is pretty surprising. Apple's version isn't just another attempt. It's a totally different animal, and it might actually be the real deal, potentially landing as soon as 2027.
So first things first, let's talk about that price tag, the one that made pretty much everyone's jaw hit the floor. The Humane Pin launched at a whopping $690. I mean, for a brand new, totally unproven piece of tech, that was a really big ask.
And it wasn't just about the money. The product itself was so buggy, so impractical, it just became a complete joke online. Now, on one hand, that set an incredibly low bar for anyone else trying this, but on the other hand, it also kind of poisoned the well. Everyone is super skeptical now. So for Apple, the stakes are absolutely massive.
Okay, so to really understand why Apple even has a shot at this, we have to look back at what went so disastrously wrong for Humane. I mean, the dream was huge, right? But the execution? Oh boy, it was a total train wreck.
This right here, this is basically a masterclass in what not to do when you launch a new product. Humane tried to replace the smartphone, which, let's be honest, nobody asked for. That laser projector thing for your palm? Totally useless in the daytime. The battery life was a joke, the AI felt like it was from 5 years ago, and then, the cherry on top, they wanted a $24 a month subscription on top of the almost $700 price tag. It was just a complete and utter disaster.
So, keeping that whole mess in mind, let's pivot to Apple's secret project. It's almost like they took notes, made a checklist of everything Humane did wrong, and then just systematically did the exact opposite. And here's a peek under the hood. We're talking about a small, pretty discreet disc about the size of an AirTag. But inside, it is absolutely packed with Apple's top-tier tech. You've got dual cameras, one for context, one for detail, a 3-microphone array so it can actually hear you in a noisy room, a speaker, a physical button, and of course, that familiar magnetic charging just like an Apple Watch. It is classic Apple, right? Just engineering magic stuffed into a tiny, elegant package.
And this really gets to the heart of the matter. This is the single biggest, most important difference. Humane tried to replace your smartphone. Apple, they're building an accessory for your smartphone. They're not trying to kill the iPhone. No way. They're trying to make the iPhone and all your other Apple stuff even more useful. And that strategy, it is so much smarter.
Okay, but look, great hardware is only half the battle, right? The real make-or-break factor here is the AI, the brains of the operation. And for this, Apple is bringing out the big guns, their brand new Apple Intelligence.
So what even is Apple Intelligence? Well, the easiest way to think about it is like Siri on steroids. It's a clever hybrid system. It combines Apple's own super fast on-device processing for the simple, quick stuff, but then it taps into the massive power of Google's Gemini models for the really heavy lifting. And that right there gives this pin the actual intelligence it needs to be genuinely helpful. A bar that, let's be real, Humane's AI never even got close to.
And you know they're tackling that big privacy elephant in the room head-on, with something they call private cloud compute. So here's the gist of how it works. If a request is too complicated for the pin to handle by itself, that data gets encrypted, sent to a private Apple server, processed on Apple's own custom silicon, and then, this is the key part, it's immediately and permanently deleted. Apple is making a very public, very clear promise here. They can't see your data, and they won't store your data, period.
So how would you actually use this thing day to day? Well, the whole concept is built around seamless, hands-free voice commands. So you can forget about a weird, clunky projector for your hand. All the feedback you get is audio, either from the pin's own speaker or straight to your AirPods. So picture this, you're looking at a restaurant, and you just ask, "Hey Siri, what are the reviews like for this place?" The pin uses its cameras to see what you're seeing and just tells you the answer. And to deal with the whole creepiness factor, there's a little trust light that lights up so everyone around you knows when it's recording.
All right, now we get to Apple's true secret weapon, the thing that no startup, no matter how clever, can really compete with. See, this pin, it isn't just a pin. It's one more piece, one more node in their incredibly powerful, interconnected ecosystem. And this quote I pulled from one of the reports I was reading, it just hits the nail on the head.
Apple isn't just selling you another device. No, they're enrolling you even deeper into their world. A world where your iPhone, your AirPods, your Apple Watch, and now this pin, they all work together to create a system that's way more valuable than just the sum of its parts.
And this right here really shows you how that lock-in works. The pin makes your iPhone more capable. It basically turns your AirPods into a personal AI assistant. It could even be the main way you interact with future Apple glasses. Every single new device they add makes the whole system more valuable, and that creates something economists call switching costs, which is a fancy way of saying it makes it really, really hard to ever leave and switch to something like Android.
But okay, let's pump the brakes a little. We can't get too carried away. This thing is far from a guaranteed success. Apple has to overcome some absolutely massive hurdles, both technically and socially, to make this actually work.
All right, let's talk about those headwinds, the big challenges. First up, battery life. I mean, an always-on, always-listening device is going to be a huge power drain. Then there's AI accuracy. It has to be nearly perfect, because one really bad misunderstanding could destroy a user's trust forever. Of course, it's completely useless without a strong connection, whether that's Wi-Fi or cellular. And then you have the big social questions. Will people think this is cool? Or is it just dorky? And what are the real privacy and ethical implications of a constant surveillance device? These are serious concerns.
But here's why Apple might actually be the one company that can pull this off. First, the timing. AI models are finally powerful enough to make something like this genuinely useful. We've already talked about their massive ecosystem advantage. Plus, they are absolute masters of design. They know how to make new, even kind of weird technology feel approachable and cool. They've got a retail presence where they can actually teach people how to use it in person. And maybe most importantly, unlike a startup, they have the resources, the money, and the patience to iterate and get it just right.
So when could you actually get your hands on one? Well, the latest reports are pointing towards a possible launch sometime in 2027. But, this is Apple we're talking about. They are completely obsessive about getting the experience right. If it's not perfect, they have zero problem delaying it. We saw it with the Apple Watch. We saw it with the Vision Pro. They will not ship a product until they think it's ready.
When you zoom out, you realize this isn't just about another cool gadget. What this really is Apple placing a huge bet on the future. A bet on how all of us will interact with our technology down the road.
I mean, think about it. For decades, our main way of interacting with computers has been staring at screens. This little pin represents a massive potential shift away from that. It's a move toward a world where we can interact with our tech through something way more natural, our voice. This could be the very first baby step into a true post-smartphone future. Which brings us to the billion-dollar question, doesn't it? Is the future hands-free? Are we really moving toward a world where our phones mostly stay in our pockets and we interact instead with a whole ecosystem of smarter, more personal ambient devices? Apple is clearly betting big that the answer is yes. And, in just a few short years, we're all going to find